I think Neto looked quite content before I left him. Healthy, even. He patched up a piece of our wall with some old self-made cement concocted from things he found in the garage. He even took a look at our plumbing, which was having problems, and seemed to have found a fix. He didn't remember having much of this kind of skill, but perhaps he had forgotten. In any case, he was more curious about buildings, he said. He had once designed some things, apparently, though we'd never spoken on the subject before. There was a village about an hour's walk from the castle. Walk along the ridge, and then there was a strange dolmen-like rock. And we'd follow it down through a gully to a main road, and then a small village that had a market, a pub, and at times populated by tourists because of some historical markers nearby. The pub was called The Wizard, and so I think it had something to do with that, druids, and the like. I hopped on the bus and felt my anxiety rev up with the motor, just a frame, just a touch, just a blink. I wondered if Neto hadn't told me everything about this Chang, about Dracunin, about New York. I worried about Simon, and yet I wouldn't let myself worry over much that wouldn't help. Indian food in Inverness, delightful. Glasgow, I made my way to the church pub that Neto had told me briefly about. I walked through it during a slow time. I sensed around. I didn't see anyone like he described. I walked its perimeter and then gave up. I flew out to London and then to JFK. The altitude made me forget what I was doing, and that wasn't altogether unpleasant a feeling. Too many peanuts. I'd always been more at ease in Los Angeles than New York. If Los Angeles felt like a pirate ship teetering on the edge of a wave, then New York felt like the moment of débordage, as we say. The moment one ship meets another and I would abandon all hope, feel the urgency of my origins, be confronted with everything that I'd ever feared, and I was being a little dramatic. I only mean to say New York is a tad overstimulating. Near Central Park, a woman in a gray coat smiled at me. She was petite and pretty and somewhat elfin-like. I couldn't help but watch her as she walked down the sidewalk. She met a friend with a baby in a stroller, and then caught me tracking her and looked back. A few dozen inappropriate yearnings ran through my head like a kinetoscope. What in the world? Had sex and violence finally divorced themselves? How much I'd pushed that part of myself away, locked by an Agatha-shaped key, gratefully at the time. I only wanted her control. I only wanted to be told what to do by her. I slipped into the subway towards chaos. I sipped at the dust and the decay, and I leant into a homeless man's unfortunate stench as I gave him $100 like I'd paid him to linger in his odor. Then I sat in the subway car, uncertain if I was going uptown or downtown. I let the motion of the train and the sober, determined visages sway me into familiar, dark reverie. And still, femininity. Forbidden, somehow lost. How it had the power to consume me altogether. Perhaps. A subway performer dangled, did a pole dance. A clownish performance. Titters. I found myself laughing like a child. As I got out of the subway, I noticed after walking a few blocks I hadn't gone far. I was still near Central Park. I reread the approximate address Neto had given me. Somehow I walked down a couple blocks and found the building. MB, the penthouse floor read. Blackhall, I believe Neto had told me the name was. A pirate's name, if I'd ever heard one. I rang. A not altogether short time passed. I spotted a man across the way near a car looking at me. Still, I had the habit of standing out, despite my best efforts at adhering to the styles of the times. Finally.
Harry? You alone?
Yep. The door buzzed. At the elevator, another click, a buzz. I got in. The penthouse floor required a code. But then it lit up by itself. I began to rise. I did not know why I did not express more relief at Simon being here, being all right. It hit me as I rose, floor by floor, but somehow I had known somewhere in my deepest parts that he was all right. Perhaps I knew he must have inherited some of my invulnerability. Still, I embraced him atypically as I entered his flat. He was taken aback, recoiling slightly.
Harry, holy shit, good to see you. Sorry, the place is still in a bit of a shambles.
Indeed, the entryway seemingly had been replastered, was in a finalized state of construction. Paint swatches lay on the ground, a piece of the floor was still bare, revealing underfloor heating. Simon guided me into the kitchen. There were indeed some signs of distress there, a few broken tiles against the wall. There are a few moments in life where things become perfectly clear, like you're able to be absolutely present, anchored within the vortex of time. You can see the past, vast, abyss-like, but you balance safely above, and the future, all impossible variations rooted in potential, glimmering above like so many stars. So sitting in his lounge across from Simon, who reminded me of a young skipper I once knew suddenly, briefly that was, and looking out at the panorama of Central Park, I felt like my pirate ship, or the amalgamation of my ships, their essence had suddenly risen with a tide to this vantage point. I was no longer swaying uncertainly, but I'd reached the tender balance of a cloud. It felt like Simon wouldn't look me in the eye. Nice view.
It's my grandmother's.
The view.
The place.
I'm glad you're all right. I don't know why, but I figured you were.
Mostly fine, yeah. Did you see anyone outside?
I don't think so, no. I mean, should I have?
There's been a few. PIs, I think, you know.
Really, any idea whose?
Who cares? So, what's new? What's up?
I mean, may I ask what happened? I mean, a little redecorating, I understand. I've seen Neto, he told me.
How is he?
Went on a bit of an adventure, but he's fine. Parker took him to Taiwan, at least he did for a while. Then a man named Chang strung him along until, well, there's a lot to go over.
Shit. I hope that wasn't the case. When I got back, they were both gone. Place was a mess. Had to figure out what to do. I called my grandmother. She had someone take care of it, with the authorities and everything.
Simon looked forlorn.
Shit. I should have found a way to track you both down. I'm shit.
Hold on. What happened? Neto is fine. Things are complicated, but everyone is fine. I knew the boy didn't want to talk. I still called him the boy in my mind, but he had matured a little. Took a leap in looking older. He lived through a few things, it would seem. I convinced him to go out. It would seem he had not had a lot of fresh air recently. Maybe a little rattled by whatever had happened. He was nervous coming out of the building, so instead of leading us away from the man I'd spotted earlier, I beckoned Simon towards him with me. The sight of me gave the man pause. He began walking quickly down the sidewalk. I thought twice before following him. We walked the other way instead. I have a place to stay if you want to get away from your apartment, if you feel safer.
Thanks. That's not why I haven't been out much. Just, depressed.
Okay, well, let's walk. I needed to check into a local sex shop for a little stowed-away piece of art to trade. Before going in, I noticed Simon's discomfort, which made me chuckle. Neto had your expression not long ago. Staying outside, I take it. We walked through the rainbow-colored neighborhood, my package under my arm. Still, Simon looked around shiftily. I couldn't quite place his discomfort. I glanced behind me, but didn't see anyone that looked like they were tracking us. Or was it? I don't remember Simon having any issue walking through WeHo with me in Los Angeles, but I guess I wouldn't really notice these things so much. I wasn't always attuned to these vibrations. Still, when we were in less colorful of a neighborhood, Simon seemed to calm himself. I reached my destination, walked into the gallery, and dropped my package with the secretary and came back out. Thanks, all done now. Food? We ate mostly in silence. I think the boy knew I was as comfortable with silence as any. Still, he avoided my gaze, looked around shiftily, ate sparingly. I finished his pizza for him, grinning and chuckling to myself for a moment.
Yeah? What's funny?
Nothing. Everything. I'll tell you later. I said conspiratorially, like we were a couple of teenagers. The apartment I had secured was much smaller than the Blackall residence, but it would do. I motioned to a spare bedroom should Simon have changed his mind. I still didn't know where his discomfort came from. Like a continued motif, I noticed then a photograph on the wall. Something I'd secured for this buyer, a Robert Mapplethorpe, none too family-friendly. I looked back at Simon. He spotted me spotting his discomfort as he had looked at the photograph too. Sorry.
What? What for what?
Oh, nothing. The silence now was awkwardly pregnant.
Can I, ask you something?
Sure.
When we first met, when you got me back, were you ever gonna, make a pass at me?
I looked at Simon. I knew he was serious, but something bubbled inside my stomach. A laugh.
What's so funny?
Oh, nothing. It's just been strange times. Well, I didn't think this is what we were going to talk about, but so be it. The birds and the bees, then, is it?
I'm just asking why the hell you don't bring back, a young guy just like that.
Sure, yes, I can see that. Well, no, I laughed because, well, sex and the vampire, and sex and me, I mean, where to start? I looked again at the Maplethorpe, how not long ago it would have just appeared as a piece of currency to me. But now I could see its repressed beauty, its violence, the expression of passion. It was beautiful, raw, like a piece of open fruit. You know, the funniest thing happened to me before I found you. I was near Central Park, and a woman in a gray coat, very pretty. I notice a pretty woman like anyone in a way, but this woman, she smiled at me, and then there I was in a different world.
Yeah? So, what? Did you talk to her? Did she talk to you?
Oh, no. And yet it was still marvelous. I had the kinds of musings I'm not sure I've ever had. She bowled me over with her eyes only. And I let her in my mind, but what, me? Talking to her, courting her, I mean, making a pass at her, I'd be desperately bad at it. You know, I don't think I've ever done such a thing my whole life. These many,
What about Agatha?
Yes, well, that was a piece of the puzzle, I suppose. Though with time, who knows? I don't know if it was my addictions or my past, but I never could quite understand sex, intimacy with anyone. Sure, I would sometimes play the part in front of my men in a few blackouts I may have with a few here and there, but it didn't stick. No regrets, but it wasn't interesting to me. I felt fatigued by it. I don't know. But with Agatha, well, there was something else. I suppose I felt indebted to her and, well, possessed by her, and that freed a part of me. And then, well, sure, we had intimacy. Hard to say if it wasn't a kind of devotion, however.
So, you don't like men?
Ah, well, that's where I think the vampire part comes in. You've only lived a short time on this earth, Simon, and well, there isn't a vampire who's lived 50, 100, 200, 800 years who won't tell you that the sense that sexuality is more illusion than, I don't know. Let's just say, try to ask a vampire their sexuality and see them confused, is what I'll say. I think about it less than most, but probably if you'd ask Netto, he'd just shrug.
So, like, being a vampire makes you gay, is that it?
I've really no idea. Are you afraid of something? I never thought of you that way. And like I said this morning, the woman, that was new. But it doesn't really stick.
I believe you. It's just, has to do with what happened, I think, but I think I'm just realizing now. I think I was afraid you'd judge me, but now I think I'm like processing my judgment of myself, I think.
Simon sat on the rattan mid-century chaise. I opened the patio door. A fresh breeze came in. I looked where to sit, but since I wanted to give him space, all I had was this regrettable beanbag, a strange addition to this stylish place. I sunk into it awkwardly.
When Netto was here, I met someone, a friend of a friend. I had a few drinks, but, more than a few, a lot. But I had to, pretend I was drunker than I was. So, anyway, I never thought of guys, but I was having fun with this guy. And, well, we had some things in common. He was flattering. Shit, you get it. I liked him. Well, anyway, I gave him the code to the place. I knew Netto would go out at some point. Only Netto went out, and Parker, prodigal son, is what he used to be called. I didn't know him growing up, but enough to be suspicious of him. Well, he was there and he convinced my new friend to let him up in the elevator with him.
Simon had that electrical feel in his recall. I could tell if there were some brighter lights in here that he may be able to make trouble for himself. I recognized the same quick burst of energy in myself in a way, powerful but unpredictable.
So yeah, that's where, well, I guess it's confusing. It's deeply embedded. My grandfather wasn't all that concerned with sexuality, but that's not true. It was all over his scripture, and yet contorted when he changed, probably excused his own affairs from what I understand. But all along there was a clear shame. Shame first at being immortal, then shame at not being immortal, but clearly some of it stuck, like residue, like... It's a funny thing, I always got a vibe from Parker, and yet here he was. I was just too shocked, and my friend was there, so I just let him stroll in. He started to talk like he was some uncle. Then he started to use some language. My friend was laughing like he was kidding, but he was directing it at me, and he wasn't kidding. I could sense his control building. He was using... Anyway, but... he made the wrong bet. We started shouting. My friend thought we were joking at first. It all came out. My friend got uncomfortable and left. But then... things started happening. I had music on. I hate to say it, but I was going to show off with my lights a little, and then I couldn't stop it. All this rage at him, but also at myself. Maybe some other feelings. I just went ballistic.
I see. Were you hurt? Was he?
I don't know. I scared the shit out of him. Place was a mess. When I stopped going off, I just found myself running out of the place. I wanted to find my friend to explain. I don't know, but I just kept running. A lot of emotions came out. I just felt crazy.
What did Parker want?
Never got to it. I think, weirdly, he was trying to flatter me at first. It didn't make a lot of sense. I'm not even sure he knew what he was doing. I think my friend might have thrown him off.
What about in Amsterdam?
I don't know. I didn't trust him, but, I knew he was kind of on the outside. Money talks, and I was a little bit on the lam at that point, so...
Well, and then Neto shows up. Parker lies to him. Maybe you did dodge a bullet. Maybe it was for the best.
I would have never gone with him. Some people stay in the RUS, but they've left. I think Parker left, but stayed in his heart, or wherever, as they say. Manipulation. You think that's a word they would know, but how could they? That's the entire game. And whomever doesn't play the game is the game, as my grandfather would say.
I said. Later, I'd accompany Simon back to his place. He offered that I could stay, but I told him I'd see him in the morning if he'd like. Not that I wanted to badly, but I felt odd embracing him again. I kept doing that recently, and it always caught me by surprise. As I walked back to my own apartment, the feel of Agatha's lips brushed against the fringes of my imagination. How foolish. How foolish to those who prohibit what is surely the most rare thing in the world, intimacy. How can one be prejudicial of an embrace? To me, naturally, the idea of two people meeting and wanting that from each other seems miraculous, but that's just me. New York hummed, it throbbed, it sang, and it shrieked. It was violence and intimacy. I could understand it a little now. I never had before, or before I understood it too well, and it reminded me of fear. Now, I wondered if I could lose myself without it.